thing that Ed said about what we really need is for the feds to not block voter ID laws and the like. And what the real problem there is liberal activist judges in locations. And it's typical Democrat liberal double standard and hypocrisy, because these liberal activist judges are more than happy to uphold a supposedly constitutional demand that I show an ID and prove who I am and clear a background check in order to exercise my Second Amendment right.
That's a good one, Joe. Yeah.
But then say, oh, well, a voter ID is unconstitutional. Baloney.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's a great point. I never really thought about it in that way. But anybody that says voter ID keeps people from voting is full of you-know-what.
Baloney, yes.
I'm glad you got a cleaner mind than I do. And that's nonsense. You need voter ID or ID to cash checks, to get your bridge card, to get welfare, to get food stamps, to get anything. So don't tell me a voter ID is going to keep you from exercising your Second Amendment or your voting rights.
It is completely racist of Democrats to continue to insist that it is racist to invoke voter ID, because their suggestion is that while blacks and minorities, Hispanics can't get it. Why? They're too stupid to get it? They're too lazy to get it? That is racist.
They need ID to cash their checks, even if they're government checks, they...
Absolutely.
And, the liberals love to extol the European experience. We need to make America more like socialist Europe. Europe has very stiff voting laws. Yeah, Germany in particular has cards, and they're only good. And you know what we need to get rid of also, a lot of other countries have, is this voting ahead of time. Not just absentee. I believe absentee should be restricted to military only. But this whole concept of early voting, go in and vote early, and then same-day registration, that stuff ought to be flat out illegal.
Here's my question. Why do they wait until all the voting is done to do the absentee? Why aren't they done the day before?
I don't know.
Get them done. Nothing should be coming up afterward. Mm-hmm. I mean, all right, a military doesn't get, number one, it's the military. Why aren't their votes coming in early? I mean, can't you be ordered? Hey, all you 5 guys over there, if you're voting, I want it on my desk today. Mm-hmm. We need to get it in 2 weeks early to your hometown or whatever. Get it done.
I agree that the early voting needs to be eliminated. I semi-agree with that on the absentee. I think you should have to literally be homebound. My dad was for a while. My mom is now. So I wouldn't restrict it as much as Ed suggested, but it should be greatly restricted. And Prop 3 was all about voter fraud. Same-day registration, more early voting. That's inviting and asking for voter fraud. How is it for 200 and some years people voting on election day at an actual poll was not a problem, and they had to get around on horse and buggies?
Yeah, exactly. They valued their vote. The vote had value to them. That was something they if you want to say, reverenced, and it had value. And now it's like, it's a vote, whatever. And they act like it has more value because, it has such value, we'll let you come in 2 weeks early and do it because we really want you to vote. And it's like, no, show some effort. If it has that much value, just show that it has that value.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up too, Joe, because I didn't put it on the agenda, but I wanted to hit it. Did either of you hear Jocelyn Benson this week? She was at some event, and she was talking about getting rid of the Electoral College. Hello.
I thought that was another parody. She really said
that? Yes. It's not like you didn't know. We all knew that she stood for getting rid of the Electoral College, and she now controls the 13 people who will be redistricting because George Soros paid for that proposal, and he paid for her campaign to boot.
Well, thank God we kept a Republican legislature, or we would be looking at that Electoral College compact where they would force us to go with the majority vote as opposed to. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I heard something. Instead of going with they'd go force our state to follow the popular vote instead of the wishes of our state's voters. That's what happens when you get rid of the Electoral College, and this is an end run around that. And the Republican Congress, the Republican state legislature said, no, that's not going to happen. But we came real close to that, right, Joe?
Yeah, we sure did. There were a few people we had to twist arms at the last minute to make sure it didn't happen. But Tom Leonard swore that he would keep it from the floor regardless. And with Jocelyn Benson, Prop 2, the whole thing, the Soros funding and all that, it's not going to end gerrymandering. It was all about who controls gerrymandering and putting it in the hands of liberal Democrats.
Yes, well said.
With having the Attorney General also be a Democrat now, will have no legal recourse to challenge it because she won't want to challenge it.
Well, I think that's going to be challenged in the courts. There was talk about that. I don't know if it started yet. We'll see.
Yeah.
Right, but we won't have the AG to fight it. And then it's kind of the same concern with the right to work. Well, we still control, like, the Michigan House and Michigan Senate. So there will be no change there. But yes, we will have a governor, a secretary of state, an attorney general who will all be hostile to it. And unfortunately, Democrats now have a 5-4 majority in the Michigan Supreme Court, so they may attempt to attack it again, nibble around the edges, and get an activist ruling out of the Supreme Court that we have to be aware of.
Okay. Well, great call, Joe.
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks
it,
a
man.
lot, Joe. I'm depressed now.
All right, take care, guys. Love you.
You too. Have a good one. Love you too. All right, and speaking of the Supreme Court, Joanne from Ohio sent us a quick email saying, mentioning Ruth Bader Ginsburg's being sick and her cancer allegedly coming back.
I heard January. She's not, her cancer? Yeah, not just the broken ribs, but the cancer.
Yeah, so God blessings to her. Nobody wants her to be sick or
I just want her to resign.
But, well, yeah. I
don't want her to be sick. I don't want her to die. I just want her gone.
It's unfortunate. But it's going to be another ugly replacement. You think Kavanaugh is bad. Wait till you see the next one, right?
The next one's a woman.
And the next one will be a woman. And it's going to be, it'll be interesting to see what the Democrats pull out of their hack to go after this. You know what I mean? So thank you, Joanne, for sending that. Let's take a call from Gary, who's been so patient. Gary, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. You're right. Joe, it's really depressing, but it's our reality now. Our state's gone right to the crapper.
Yeah, well, you reap what you vote. Yeah. You know what I mean? Michigan, you were uneducated when you went to the polls this year. You were fooled by a lot of campaign money, and you fell for it. Next time, educate yourselves, folks.
Hey, what do you think about Judge Janine for the Supreme Court?
I'd love it, but I don't think that's going to happen. There's just no way.
No, neither do I. But what I want to talk about is what Mark was saying. Mark was on key because what we've got going on is our government, who can no longer vouch for the integrity of our electoral process. Mm-hmm. We have really no idea if the makeup of the Congress and the House represent the people of the United States. We don't know. But we have to just go with it. We have to roll with it because that's what we have. But it's not us. It's just whatever came up, whatever happened.
Yeah.
Well, along those lines, there's also the census and whether you're a citizen or not. So if you're not forced to answer whether you're a citizen in the census, then you get counted as a resident of that state, and you might have California's, 1/3 illegal residents, right? And they all get counted in the census, so all of a sudden they get most of the House of Representatives based on their census count. When you're talking about gerrymandering, right?
Well, you're
so all of a
right
sudden
about that. It doesn't matter if you're legal or not. You're still counted in that process. So that's why we have to get rid of all the illegals.
Yeah. Well, it still matters. I'm not following you, and I feel argumentative at the moment. So I think it still matters if you have a bunch of people who are illegally here and they're counted as, even if they don't vote,
they still got representation.
They have representation, and that liberal state gets more representation than Congress and distorts our process.
Which goes to Gary's point is they need to be gone.
Yes,
they need to be gone.
Yeah.
Either find some kind of a compromise to make some of them allowed to be staying, either as green cards or a path of citizenship,
certainly
or
don't
get
count
them out of the country.
But don't count them in the census. Do not.
Right.
That's the simple
I agree.
thing.
Absolutely.
Then we have to put a moratorium on all immigration for 10, 20, 30 years until we sort it out, so we know who's coming and going.
I'd be good with that.
Yeah.
I'd be good with that.
Well, right, it's gonna make it hard to bring in brain trust people. You know what I mean? Top scientists and people that
so
we
you
need.
limit it to
they
10,000
can do
a
their
year.
job remotely.
That's true.
Well, there you go. Didn't think about that. Welcome to the new internet world, right?
That's right. See you guys later.
Thanks,
See
Gary.
you.
Appreciate the call. Let's take a call from Jasmine in Chicago. Jasmine, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Jasmine.
What's going
How's
on in
your
Chicago?
weekend?
Yeah. Anybody dying out there this weekend?
Oh, I'm sure.
We haven't heard the death toll yet out of Chicago, but it's coming.
No, not yet. But I wanted to ask you guys, since you are like the Messiah to me here. I have to ask.
Ed is.
Who do you think shot themselves in the foot the most this week? Do you think it was Michael Avenatti or Jim Acosta?
You got to go with Avenatti. I mean, you want to talk about karma. Boy, and for him to get in front of a microphone and say, I didn't do that.
No, you got to believe the woman.
Right.
You got to believe the woman, Michael Avenatti. She said it, you did it.
That is karma, universal karma at its best. And that dork should just disappear as quickly as he can. Yeah, Acosta, he's sneaky, but yeah, I think.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch him sit there and not be asked a question, totally ignored until he tries to grab the mic from somebody else.
Why not sit him at the back?
Actually, there was a Mike Huckabee posted something online where he was talking to the judge that said that Acosta needs his credentials back. He says, how about if someone stood up in your court and refused to let you finish talking and, interrupted you every 5 seconds and wouldn't let you conduct your courtroom with any kind of decorum or respect? I wonder if you would have that kind of attitude.
That's what bailiffs are for.
We're talking about the president.
Yeah.
Well,
for me, because I saw something on Facebook. One of my friends, liberal friends, was kind of argumentative about the video being doctored. Please, you don't doctor the video. The man knocked her arm. It wasn't assaulting her.
Care.
Knocked her.
It's not that he touched her at all.
It's not that he touched her. It's the fact that he asked question 1, he asked question 2, and it really wasn't a question. He began expounding and having an argument over whether something's an invasion or someone's asking for asylum. And that's just a sheer difference of opinion. As a reporter, it's your job to ask the question, maybe do the follow-up, and you're done. You're not there to argue. We're not here to listen to you.
It's not the Jim Acosta hour.
That's right. We're not here to interview Jim Acosta. We're here to hear the president, his answers to our questions. Not Jim Acosta's expounding from some microphone that he's right and knows the best.
We're clear how he got back, right? It wasn't the First Amendment that got him back. It was the Fifth Amendment. It was a process issue.
Yes.
That judge ruled that there wasn't a process that had been followed. Therefore, it looked, what's the word? Was just random. It looked random. There's another word for that, but spurious. And so, since there was, now they're told you have to come up with a process. You have to come up with guidelines for what can be cause for being ejected and all that, which is just fine. They'll do that and then they'll eject him again.
Yeah,
because he'll violate them.
Yeah. What else you got, Jasmine?
Well, another comment I wanted to make that maybe Gary can address here, because it's kind of like seeing a color for the first time. So I have to ask you, what is it like to have liberal friends? I wouldn't know.
I am just such a nice and tolerant person that I do have liberal friends. People may say, "Angry Gary's got liberal friends." Yes, I do.
I have some friends who are liberal. I have conversations with liberals. I know some liberals, and we don't argue. And every time I tell myself all liberals are idiots, I think of these people. I go, no, they're not. So it's like people go on about Muslims. Well, I know some nice Muslims. I'm sorry to have to break that world, but I know some nice Muslims. I am not threatened by them. They are not going to turn on me or my family or this country. Oh, yes, they're sleeper agents. No, they're not. No, they're not. And so I have to watch what I say about Muslims, although, when you look at what happens within the Muslim community, the hate that's shown in a lot of Muslim community for us, I have to remind myself they're not all like that. And so you have to be tolerant. You talk to your liberal friends, right?
Yeah.
And you have a conversation. I learn from them. If nothing else, I learn how they think.
Yeah. I mean, there are some liberal friends that we've kind of fallen apart over the last 2 years, 3 years over the Trump thing, right? Because they just